I think that Jalen Hurts is a really good player, but there's probably I may not want him. I think he's a good enough passer. I just don't think you want to really throw it a lot with him.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. And there's a lot to get to, right? I have all of my takeaways from preseason week 3. There are a number of injuries to get to. There's been a bunch of trades since Thursday morning show with the great Greg Cosell. And I just got to tell you what I thought about all the games, right? Like my takeaways from the games. So we'll get to all that. We have a tremendous guest, Mike Sando. Love this conversation on his quarterback tiers every year. I just realized I forgot to announce the winners on Thursday's show for last week. So shout out to Joe Kane for spreading the word via social media. I think it was a comment on Instagram at Ross Tucker Pod. And I already think I said Norm Physicus used the code Ross on the Game Time app. That's awesome. Norm, you are a winner. And then James Sproles made a comment on YouTube. Speaking of winners, by the way, guess what? We're giving away a Madden in the email newsletter, which will be out at some point on Monday or Tuesday. We will be giving away a Madden. So make sure you're signed up, either at any of the links we ever post or at the link tree that we post or over at rosstucker.com so that you get the email, so you get our huge show news that's being announced and a chance to win the Madden. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
So this has become one of my favorite interviews every year just because it's a great topic, right? Quarterback rankings, quarterback tiers. But what makes this one a little bit different is the work that my guy Mike Sando puts in to get this incredible article every year that you can check out at The Athletic. You can follow Mike on social media at Sando NFL. He writes for The Athletic. And Mike, I think we say it every year, but I'll start with this. Thank you for the time, of course. Can you just go through for my audience again? We're not going to go through every guy and every ranking and whatever. They can all, hopefully they already have a subscription to The Athletic or they can go check it out.
Yeah.
But just sort of how the tiered system works and who exactly is doing the voting in your quarterback tiers.
Yeah, so this is 12th year of doing it. I've been covering the league for 28 years, so I know a lot of people, have a lot of good relationships in the league, people I trust. And so after the draft every year, we kind of know what the quarterback landscape is then. If a team took a guy third overall, right, we know he might start. That sort of a thing. And I take all the veterans, we exclude the rookies, put them kind of on a sheet. There's usually 35 because there'll be some teams that have 2, right? They don't know what they're going to do. And I got to protect myself in case there's an injury. I got to anticipate. I can't have the season come about and have a guy who's going to start not be on my list. So from there, I will visit teams. I will call people that I know, text them, get them going. I build a ballot. And over the years of doing this, we've kind of honed what the tiers are. Tier 1's the best. Tier 5 is very rare that someone would get that. That means, hey, you're not even a starter. But really, to be in tier 1, it's you carry your team each week. You don't really have a hole in your game. And I think critically, sometimes controversially, you got to be proficient in passing the ball when the defense knows you're going to pass. That's when it gets really hard, right, Ross? It gets hard for an offensive lineman then too. But when they know you're going to pass, can you do it? How well can you do it? Or do you just melt down? So the best guys in tier 1 can really handle that. Tier 2 is just a less consistent version of tier 1. I feel like in tier 1 and 2, you got one of those guys, you could probably go to the Super Bowl without having the 2000 Ravens defense, right? You've got a chance every year. And then tier 3, I think you're going to get paid in tier 3 the way it is today, but maybe more defense, more run game for your team, not feature you as much. That's tier 3. 4 is either, hey, like Russell Wilson at this stage of his career, is he a full season starter? You might put him in tier four if you think not. Or JJ McCarthy might get a four because we just don't have enough information. So that's really how it goes. And I'll have I'll usually take me about 6 weeks to get the 50 votes in just from trying to catch guys, and then longer than that to have conversations and really flesh it out. Hey, what were you thinking? You've got this guy as a two. What's he missing to be a one? And that's when we really get going with the fun stuff. And I weave it all together. This year, I think we had six GMs, six assistant GMs, six former GMs that are working in other roles in the league. I think there were 19 coaches, 15 of them were coordinators, plus eight head coaches. So there's 19 assistants, eight head coaches, a handful of other folks. And we get kind of a market analysis of the position for better or worse with lots to talk about.
That is awesome. I love it. I can tell by reading it that you put a lot of time into it, and I have a healthy respect for that. Most of my questions are more broad-based. I do have a
Yeah.
couple of specific ones, but the biggest changes this year, Mike, the biggest in terms of guys going up the list and down the list, the biggest changes from year to year with your quarterback tier rankings.
Yeah, so the best move up was Sam Darnold, which I think makes sense, and he had a really good year with the Vikings. It ended kind of poorly, but he pushed solidly up into tier three, so he's kind of seen right now as a legitimate starting quarterback. Maybe still in that, hey, let's play some good defense, let's have a good run game, and let's just see. There's a feeling there may be more there for him. The biggest faller was Aaron Rodgers, and he had a long way to fall, but I think last year he fell from tier one, where I think he'd been unanimous tier one like six times. He fell to tier two last year, and he's fully down into tier three. He's kind of nestled in between Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa, so not real. But he got votes in four different tiers, so there's disagreement. I think you could make a case. You could make a lot of different cases for Rodgers. We just need to see it probably this year.
Wow. I think that'd be tough to put him in tier one based on your criteria at
One
this stage
guy.
of his
Yeah,
career.
one guy did. So it was a defensive coordinator who's well regarded, and sometimes, maybe he was afraid if he put him low that it would come back to bite him if he played him this year. I don't know, but I agree. I don't think he's tier one at this point.
All right, so that's the biggest changes. You don't really interject your own opinion in this thing. You're
Yeah,
more of a journalist, I would say,
yeah,
more of a reporter on this. But I am curious, for your own personal opinion, what were the biggest surprises to you, Mike, with maybe
yeah.
how you thought it would go and how it ended up going?
Yeah, so I thought that Matthew Stafford might still stay in tier two. He inched across the state line into tier one, but it was just a few extra votes in tier one. The panel changes every year somewhat, so it could just be different voters who liked him more. I think there's an interesting conversation in tier two where, like, the biggest pushback I've gotten probably is that Jalen Hurts tied for ninth, you know, in is too low, Super Bowl MVP. And so I think so right now, Jaden Daniels came in the top of tier two, and then it goes Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, CJ Stroud, and Hurts. I think a lot of people would be fine if we put Hurts in the Jaden Daniels spot at the top of tier two and moved Daniels down. I think a lot of people in media and just fans that I've heard from, but I like how it is. I think that Jalen Hurts is a really good player, but there's probably I may not want him. I think he's a good enough passer. I just don't think you want to really throw it a lot with him. And so we saw that, with their team. I thought Goff might get docked a little bit just because he's losing Ben Johnson. He was super strong and actually went up. So there weren't a lot of people like predicting it was going to fall off for him. I thought there might be. And the last thing would just be with that 2024 rookie class. There were six guys taken in the first round. I thought the conversation around Caleb Williams was more negative than I expected. Of course, Jaden Daniels was at the top, and then it was Bo Nix. A lot of excitement around those guys. Drake May was just a tick above Caleb. Caleb was fourth. And I just thought, there was a lot of people talking about whether he could process the game fast enough. And, one person even thought it was alarming what he saw. And so instead of that place being like, oh my gosh, you get to coach the Bears, you get Caleb Williams, it was more the tenor was more like, yeah, Caleb Williams there isn't a deal breaker, but it's also not the golden ticket that maybe people thought it was.
Wow. Um, Listen, I think based on last year, how could you not put him last of those guys? I mean, I thought Drake May clearly played better than Caleb Williams did, and certainly Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels did. So I think that that seems fair. I mean, Penix, if we're being honest, probably played better in those last couple games than Caleb Williams did, I thought.
I would love to know your perspective too, Ross, as an offensive lineman, the ultimate team position, right? A quarterback takes 68 sacks, and we all know that the sacks are largely a quarterback stat. Was it annoying to you that he didn't take more responsibility for some of that? Because his passer rating's high, no interceptions, but we're getting sacked all the time. Does that bother you?
Couple things. One is I don't know the level of accountability he took for that. I don't like watch the Bears post-game press
Yeah.
conferences, right? Maybe he said those sacks were all on me or most of them were all on me. So I can't really speak to that. What I can speak to and feel very strongly about, he got sacked a lot at USC. And that's really concerning
Yeah.
because USC has good linemen typically. They obviously have really good receivers. They had him. And I have a theory on this, Mike. Two theories, I guess. One is guys that get sacked a lot get sacked a lot.
Yeah.
They just don't have it in them, either the subtle pocket movement or to get rid of the ball. It's just not a natural thing for them. And there's other guys that are just so good. I mean, I don't ever remember Peyton Manning getting sacked, right? Like, even
Oh,
if an offensive lineman got beat clean, he saw it, he felt it, ball was out, right? I used to be so jealous. That was during my time. I was so jealous of the Colts linemen because Peyton got rid of it so quick, even if they got beat, and so jealous of the Patriots linemen because Brady was like Marino. Even if you got beat, as long as you just stayed with the guy, he would just slide, move a little bit, and that guy, you could take the guy
he
right
knew where
by
the
him.
yeah, he knew where his problem was going to come from, and he adjusted. Like Dan Marino, you mentioned him. He had a year with like 600 plus pass attempts, and he took 6 sacks, and he couldn't move. I mean, he couldn't beat his tackle in a foot race. You
It's
know?
unbelievable. And so the Williams thing, that many sacks is highly concerning
Yeah,
because as much as people, oh, the line and this, man, I think pressures are probably more of a offensive line stat, but there's, as you know,
yeah,
the back is involved in protection, the tight end sometimes the receiver doesn't know he's hot, blah, 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 blah. But I think pressure is a big is in large part on the offensive line. I think quarterback hits and especially sacks are more of a quarterback stat because they have the control as to whether or not they let the guy get that close before they throw it or they let the
yeah,
guy actually sack them. And so we'll see. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
Off the top of my head, I can't remember a guy that got sacked that much and then was able to totally, spin the
yeah,
pendulum the other way and be one of those guys that doesn't get sacked hardly ever. I think you can improve that, but it's like almost anything at the professional level, you can improve it marginally or incrementally, but he's not
yeah.
going to all of a sudden be Peyton Manning in terms of not taking sacks.
Right. And when I think of highly drafted guys who came into the league and took a ton of sacks, I think of David Carr. Remember when he was on Houston and
Yep.
oh, the line, they need to get a better line. Well, that was on him a lot too. So that was the most interesting thing about those guys. I think people are envisioning great things for some of those others, but less for the guy who was the consensus number one pick. I thought that was interesting.
Do you think, by the way, Mike, that maybe your descriptions of the tiers have some impact on the voting? In other words, the way you describe, tier one, a quarterback can carry his team each week. The team wins because of him. Expertly handles pure passing situations. No real holes in his game. Tier two, a quarterback can carry his team sometimes, but not as consistently. Can handle pure passing situations in doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above tier three. Has a hole or two in his game. That would be and I know that's where Hurts has ended up, but that's where I think Hurts is a tier two guy.
Yeah, I do too.
Now we can debate if he should be tied with Stroud or behind guys like Goff and Herbert, but I think based on your description, tier two is right. But what's interesting is tier three is legitimate starter, needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume drop back offense, passing on it suits him best. Well, last year the Eagles had the best running game, in part because it hurts, by the way, and the best defense. And they were better when they had lower volume drop back. So like based on how
Yeah,
you describe the
yeah,
tiers,
yeah.
I can see someone putting Hurts in tier three, but I think he's more tier two, if that makes sense. Do
Yeah,
you think
I
that the
agree.
tiers have
Yeah,
an impact?
yes, they do. They do have an impact, and I've talked about, with people in the league of like, okay, should we tweak them or hey, we're talking now more about running quarterbacks. Is the pure pass component less important? And I think for a number of years, that's why Lamar was a high too. It was like people didn't feel like the passing was quite there yet, and then of course it's gotten there, and now he's in tier one, and so. I think it could be. I've had this discussion with some of the voters, like, hey, this is how you could simplify it. You could make tier one just be elite, tier two, tier three be average. I like the specificity though, because I do think that the game at its toughest for quarterbacks still gets reduced to having to be proficient from the pocket sometimes. And being able to beat people from there is still important. And we see that as some of these guys who can't do it at all just fall by the wayside, and that's Justin Fields, right? I mean, a tremendous athlete. If he was a good, even average pocket passer, he'd be well into tier two. That's a really important part of it. And so you're right, though, like in the tier three, like looking at the definitions, some people would say like Hertz got 3 or 12 tier three votes. I would just elevate him above that because, and the guy's won a Super Bowl. I mean, he's improved as a passer. I don't think he's, you know, totally deficient, but I also think the dosage thing and lower volume drop back probably does suit him best.
I think it's strange that this is the year that Stafford was elevated to tier one. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Stafford's a really good player, and I have tremendous respect for him and what
Yeah.
he's done. But to, you know, I guess I would not look at him as a
Yeah.
tier one guy. I mean, I feel like the tier one's pretty clearly the four AFC guys, you know? I think Stafford is the next level at this stage of his career. It's interesting that now at this age he gets into the tier one. I mean, what was the
Yeah.
justification?
So here's the deal. So Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar Jackson are way, almost either unanimous or near unanimous. And then Matthew Stafford is almost evenly split between tier one and tier two. He has 26 tier one votes. So he has lived at the top of tier two for a number of years. I'm chalking this up to last year he had 21 tier one votes. So this year he has 26. But remember, it's not the same voters. So there could be 25 or 20 new voters this year. And I may have just happened to hit some guys who think more of Stafford. So I don't think there's a fundamental shift on him. I think if we redid it right now with his back injury, that there'd be concerns and like I think there'd be no way. I think he'd be bumped down a little bit. So I don't think it was a huge change on him. It probably just reflects a shift in different voters that I had this year, and it worked in his favor.
What do you think, Mike? They didn't drop a lot, but I do think that they both dropped. I'm trying to see. I'm talking about C.J. Stroud
Yep.
as well as Jordan Love. They both went down a little bit, right?
Yes, Stroud did. Jordan Love's in a similar place, I think, that he was last year. It may be, I don't think it was a big drop for him, but he didn't sustain whatever momentum he had. I think we can certainly say that. And so, Stroud a year ago got 12 tier one votes, and that was a record for a second year player who makes a debut in quarterback tiers, since shattered by Jaden Daniels, who had 17 tier one votes. But I think it is, instructive that sometimes after one great year, when you push a guy up, it doesn't mean that that trajectory is going to continue. The defenses get to have a year of tape on them and take them more seriously. And so I think we've seen a couple of really high guys in the past. Justin Herbert was another one, was super high in like 2021, and he's still high, but he didn't vault into tier one. It's exalted ground up there. And so some of these guys just end up staying in tier two, and we'll see if Stroud or can get back, or Herbert can make that push, or Jaden Daniels.
You know, it's interesting because the point I was going to make, curious to get your opinion, felt like both Stroud and Love, you could either say took a step back or were more inconsistent in their second full seasons as
Yeah.
starters.
Yep.
And I feel like we've seen that before. I can't remember Herbert, but I remember like Matt Ryan and Flacco, I didn't think were as good the second year. I think there's a couple different dynamics at play, more tape on them, people throw new things at them. I think a lot of times their own teams put more on their plate that second
Yeah.
year,
Yep.
which has an impact. But I do think there's the second year for quarterbacks can really be a learning experience for a lot of them.
I think you're right, and a couple of the voters have said that too. Hey, this second year is kind of when it's more of a test. And I think you're right. One mistake that can be made is, oh, we're so excited about this guy, let's load him up with twice as much now, and you don't realize that as a player, let's just say he gets 5% better this year. Well, guess what? The game plans against them get 20% better, right? Ross. I mean, the everyone's Jaden Daniels got everyone's attention. You go to the championship game with a bottom 10 defense. I mean, everyone's watching him now, right? And they're going to be like, okay, all right, when he does this, we're going to anticipate it and we're going to hit him and he's not going to like it, right? Or something like that. You're going to have a plan for him.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Check him out on social media. He does a terrific job at Sando NFL. He's writing for The Athletic now. And you should check out all of his work, especially the quarterback tiers, because he puts so much time and effort into it. It's really worth seeing the exact quotes from the GMs and the coaches. It's not just the numbers. He gets actual quotes of people justifying why they feel the way that they do, which really, Mike, greatly enhances the article. It's a terrific job. Thank you so much for coming on the show again this year. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ross. I enjoy it every time.
All right, let's dive into the news. But first, my friends at westshorehome.com/Ross are back. Love it. How about this deal? Buy one, get one Labor Day deal. Right now, you can buy a full bath remodel and get a shower replaced in another bathroom free. That's perfect. Or you can buy a house full of windows, get a new entry door free. 12 months, no payments, no interest. You can get an exclusive discount of $5,000 by going to westshorehome.com/Ross. See website for details. That's amazing. westshorehome.com/Ross. At the start of every fantasy feast, I say, let's eat, baby. Well, there's no better thing or place to eat than with my friends from Factor. 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. I will put my wife and myself in that category. We eat Factor meals all the time. They're shipped right to the house. You can get salmon, shrimp, all kinds of protein, good for you fats. Eat smart at factormeals.com/feast50off and use code feast50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code feast50off at factormeals.com for 50% off plus free shipping. You're getting delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, some injuries. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk and Eagles wideout Johnny Wilson, they're both done for the season. Meanwhile, Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell is out 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured wrist, and Eagles backup QB Tanner McKee, he has a fractured thumb.
I should have said, by the way, so I'll say it now. Mike Sando was presented by Liquid Death, and I want to say it because I had a bunch of Liquid Death iced tea this weekend, and it was tremendous. So shout out to Mike Sando, shout out to Liquid Death, my favorite iced tea and water. Jack, it's interesting. Out of those injuries, both those receivers are probably guys, I don't know how much they were going to contribute. The Raiders need a backup quarterback now, and the Eagles might. Unless they already made a trade today, Jack.
And that would be the Eagles getting quarterback Sam Howell from the Minnesota Vikings. Meanwhile, Minnesota will sign Carson Wentz. And the 49ers, they're trading for Commanders running back Brian Robinson. Another trade for the Eagles. They're sending a 7th-round pick to the Jaguars for Fred Johnson. And a third trade for the Eagles. They're getting a 6th-round pick from the Packers for Darian Kennard.
I'm telling you, dude, that's a lot. In one day to have 3 trades, one team. I talked about it in the Ross report last night that I do, talking about the Eagles from time to time. But Howie Roseman leaves no stone unturned. He doesn't leave things to chance, and he tries to win in the margins. I think the Vikings felt like they got a quarterback upgrade and got a draft pick. I think they think Carson Wentz is better than Sam Howell. There is some risk, though, in the fact that Carson Wentz is just getting there at this point. And then the other trades, obviously O-line is always a priority for the Eagles.
And what were your takeaways with preseason week 3 all wrapped up?
Well, I was watching that Steelers-Panthers game, and I think it's Yaya Black from Iowa. He looked like a monster, and they might need him because the first-round pick, Derek Harmon from Oregon, he's out 4 to 6 weeks with an injury he suffered against Carolina in that game. Browns-Rams, it was the rookie tight ends, right? Tyler Ferguson for the LA Rams, Fannin for the Browns. I thought Flacco looked pretty good, but their center, Ethan Posick, got hurt. So we had to get more information there. And then the other ones that jumped out to me, it's usually rookies, right? Lions wide receiver Isaac Tesla. I might have to talk to Greg Cosell about him again. I thought Texans running back Woody Marks looked good. Dolphins O-line, I mean, the starting offensive line did not look very good. But Tez Johnson, who's the receiver, 7th-round pick for the Bucs, he keeps lighting it up. Not a good performance by Shedeur Sanders either. And some of the takes that are out there, I don't even know what to say about them at this point. It's almost sad. Other than that, I think we're done here. Time to finish this episode strong right after this. Man, it felt good to crush some Labatt Blue Limes over the weekend after my game Friday night and get credit for them. How do I get credit? It's buy beer, get gear. You just go to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. First of all, it's the best tasting light beer. Secondly, they're giving away free stuff. All you need to do is go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. Buy beer, get gear.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft. All on.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. It is by far the best gift for any loved one, especially for like an anniversary. Backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.